Hello and welcome to the Vineyard Underground podcast. This is your host and viticulturist, Fritz Westover, and today we are celebrating 1 year since the launch of the Vineyard Underground podcast. And I want to thank each and every one of you for listening, for following, for reviewing, and supporting this podcast. I am truly blown away by the popularity and growth that this podcast has seen over the past 12 months, and it's all thanks to you, my listeners. So thank you, grazie mille for all of the love and support that you have for this podcast. And okay, so I wanted to get that out of the system first, but I do want to say on today's topic, every year in October and November, what I'm doing as a vineyard consultant is I'm having these end of season reviews with my clients and the teams that I work with to talk about the takeaways from the season as far as what went well, what didn't, and what we want to do differently for the next season. So for today's episode, we're going to do our own season end review and talk about the overall trends across the country. That's the North America region that I work in, the successes and the failures of the 2023 season. And just a quick note for our international listeners, even though the focus is 2023 trends across the US, many of these will have relevance for you as well. So keep listening. And on that note, I'd like to give some big global shout outs to those folks outside the US. As of the recording of this episode, I'm proud to say, this is really exciting, we have listeners in 42 countries. So thank you all for checking in, no matter where you are. I love that you're listening and learning and would love to hear more from you. All right, let's get into it and let's talk about the good first, the good news first, the successes that I saw across vineyards in the 2023 season. Number one, our first success that I'm going to talk about today is the rapidly growing trend of growers who are moving to mechanization in their vineyards, including tools like canopy hedgers, undervine weed cultivation, and even some contract mechanical harvesters for those regions who have them available. And I see that moving to mechanization is really important to growers who are struggling with cost of labor, with availability of labor. And really, the mechanization is also allowing some timing of vineyard management tasks to be done a little bit more quickly and in that window of opportunity where it's really most impactful. And as you know, most vineyard management tasks have a narrow window of optimal timing. And moving to mechanization will allow some of these tasks, at least, to be done more quickly, and it removes the possibility of delays caused by crew availability or other things. Now, sure, equipment can always break down, but if you stay on top of that and know how your equipment works, you're going to be in good shape for running that equipment in your vineyard. Also, it is possible if you're contracting someone else with that equipment, you could still see delays because that person could be busy working lots of vineyards who all happen to need the same mechanized vineyard labor that you are looking for at that very time. So make sure you schedule ahead of time if you're using someone else's equipment. All right, so next up, I'm also relating some of the successes to timing of vineyard activities. I saw a very positive trend this season in growers nailing their vineyard management timing. And because growers were on top of the timing of things like shoot thinning, leaf removal around the fruit zone, and other canopy management techniques, their vineyards seemed to suffer lower disease pressure and had better fruit quality as a result. And we know that every canopy management activity has this short window of opportunity to get it done at a low cost and also to maximize the success of that practice. So missing the timing or delaying the start of a task like shoot thinning or shoot positioning or fruit dropping if you have too much crop on the vine, if you delay that too long, it can not only lead to slower work time, but also negative outcomes for the crop. So I can think of in some cases where growers were delayed on their shoot thinning and decided they would do very late shoot thinning, where they'd also drop fruit on the same pass. And although I really like the idea of economizing every pass you make through the vineyard, you can't always delay one task so late that it coincides with the timing of a task later on. So the example of shoot thinning is normally done when your shoots are anywhere from 6 inches to 12 inches long, anywhere from 10 to 20 centimeters in length. And that's the easier time to get in and do it quickly and open up the canopy for airflow, for sprays, whatever it might be. Now, if you wait until the shoots are almost full size, 24 inches or filling the canopy or more, and you go in and try to pull shoots out, not only can you damage your spurs and cordons or your canes where you're pulling those shoots from, but you're in some cases exposing your fruit later in the season when it's hotter. And this is the case in the hot climate of Texas where I work, where some growers who got in late did their shoot thinning late, tried to do cluster thinning on the same pass, ended up opening this canopy and fruit zone in one of the hottest times of the season. And speaking of disease pressure, I also want to mention I saw a big upswing this season in the use of biological products. This is another success in my book because biological products used in vineyards are often called biopesticides, are basically a certain type of pesticide that are derived from either natural materials such as animals, plants, or bacteria, microorganisms, or certain minerals. And in short, biopesticides are coming onto the market at a very fast rate. So it's good for me to see some of the growers I work with testing some of these products out so I can start to hear feedback from the field on how they're working. But one of the things that I am excited about at some of these biopesticides or biological products is that they tend to have less restrictions for reentry. So the REI or reentry interval tends to be very short because they're usually organic products or products that are non-toxic to humans. The shorter PHI is also a factor that comes into play because of that. So your shorter pre-harvest interval means that these products can fill that gap right before harvest where we typically can't use other products that either have issues with the wine quality or with workers or with just simply the safety of the fruit at harvest. So a lot of these products have very short REIs and short PHIs. And a lot of these products, as I mentioned, fit with organic programs, but can also be used in the rotation with a conventional program or any sustainable wine growing programs. And these products, let's say you're in a organic or conventional program, they can offer an additional mode of action. So they can offer some cross protection for certain tank mixes with other products that you're already using in your program. Now, I understand that these products, if you're adding them to your program, come with additional cost, and those costs are still being realized by growers. So we're trying to see where they best fit. And typically it's in times where we're in short pre-harvest intervals or where we're trying to tank mix to get multiple modes of action to reduce resistance by diseases and pests in the vineyard. And even for growers who are not using biologicals this season, there was definitely a shift to diversify the products that were used, to shift to some, let's say, less harmful or less harsh chemicals. For example, I fielded some questions this year to growers about their insecticide usage for controlling Lepidopterous pest. And the Lepidopterous pest would be anything that has a life cycle similar to a butterfly, like grape berry moth or grape leaf folders. And I found out that many growers were actually using broad spectrum insecticides, which can be harmful and beneficials or non-Lepidopterous pest. Let's say like the ladybugs or something like that. Many of those growers that were using broad spectrum learned that they can make the switch to a narrow target product for Lepidopterous pests that had no ill effect on some of those beneficials. So examples would be a spinosad or a product with a insect growth regulator. So Intrepid 2F or Delegate, or if you're on an organic program using Bacillus thuringiensis or BT for organic production. And these products targeted those Lepidopterous pests without also taking out many of the beneficial insects in the vineyard. So I think that's a win. And I think anytime a grower can soften or reduce the broad spectrum impact of their vineyard spray, it's a win-win situation.